So this guy's entire job is saving people, and he's the one nobody's coming back for. Seo Yul is cornered at the bottom of a dungeon, sword drawn, one of his teammates already down in the dirt behind him, and the monster he's been bleeding to fight just looks at him with slow yellow eyes and lets him in on the joke it was never really trying. The rescue was the trap, and the rescuer is the one who doesn't get rescued. Rewind, because that line hits harder once you know how he got here. So he gears up his team and walks them to the gate himself. His hunters are a little undergeared for a dungeon this nasty, so Seo Yul does the thing that tells you everything. He hands his own weapon to someone who needs it more. Are you sure you don't need it? He's sure. He takes point, because of course he does, and that one decision is the thread the whole chapter pulls on. Inside, it goes sideways fast. One of his hunters is critically wounded with a monster looming right over her, and Seo Yul drops to a knee and starts lying to her the way you lie to someone you refuse to lose. Stay with me. The rescue team will be here any second. Don't die on me. He doesn't actually know that's true. He just knows he's not leaving her, and the second he decides that, he's stopped being a guy who can run. The deeper they push, the more wrong it feels. The monsters seem to know exactly where they're headed, and Seo Yul's had that prickle on the back of his neck for a while now. I've felt those eyes on me for a while now. They're not escaping. They're being walked somewhere. And right on cue, the ambush snaps shut. The boss had the high ground the whole time and was just waiting to use it. People drop around him, and a teammate manages to choke out "I'm sorry" before the line breaks. So Seo Yul makes the only call left, the one that defines the entire man: take the others and get out of here, fast. He plants himself between the boss and the exit, so the rest of them don't have to. That's your answer to the cold open. It wasn't a fight he lost. It was a price he paid on purpose. Alone, he does the one thing he spent his whole career too proud to do. He tries to bargain. If you let me live, monsters don't haggle. And as it closes in, the regret that surfaces is quieter and worse than fear. If I had just asked for help, maybe I could have made it out alive. The man whose job was rescue is dying because he could never be the one who needed it. With the strength gone out of him and a red, fanged maw filling his vision, his mind reaches for the reason any of this started. And clinging to that with nothing left, he tells himself the only thing he has: I can't die here. There's no way out of that sentence. The universe disagrees. A system window, cold, inhuman, glowing, opens in front of a dying man and offers exactly one option: accept. He takes it. Light pours off him. Something hidden inside him this whole time wakes up, and the moment of his death reroutes into a beginning. The tutorial will now begin. He comes back. He wakes up whole, staring at his own reflection, going, "Did I really just revive? Which fair?" The boss is still right there, looking just as thrown as he is, and floating in front of Seo Yul is a profile with his own name on it, name Seo Yul, while the dungeon around him stops being stone and starts rendering as a city of glowing boxes, architecture made of light, like the whole place quietly took its mask off. He didn't just survive, he came back as something the world doesn't have a word for yet. Then the system hands him the part that matters. The labyrinth isn't the cage anymore, it's the instrument. This is the Labyrinth Architect. So the man who walked in here as prey looks up at the boss that was toying with him an hour ago and decides he's done being toyed with. The plan is, by any sane hunter's standard, completely unhinged. Turn the dungeon itself into the weapon, and he knows it. It might sound crazy to some, he says, and lifts the blade anyway. Let's do this. The hunter nobody was coming to save just inherited the whole map. Next chapter, he gets to use it. Dying turned out to be the best career move this guy ever made. Last time, Seo Yul flatlined at the bottom of a dungeon and woke up inside a tutorial as the Labyrinth Architect, and here he is, calmly clearing the last few ghouls off a glowing system timer like it's a chore he wants done before lunch. 30 minutes left, 4 monsters out of the 14 he started with, and he's almost insulted by how well it's going. The tutorial, he notes, went smoother than expected, which for anyone who's ever seen a story is the universe rolling up its sleeves. Because that smug "this is easy" energy does not survive contact with the clock. A few minutes ago he had hours on the timer and total confidence, then he got rushed, skipped a check on the magic for 1 single second, and that one sloppy moment is exactly what's curdling into a worst-case scenario. Here's the catch: the system buried in the fine print. He can only take 2 ghouls at a time, and the ghouls have apparently read the same manual, because they stop wandering solo and start hunting as a pack. The math flips on him fast, boxed in on every side, the clock still bleeding minutes, and his read is cold and correct: punch a hole, get out, thin the herd before the timer does it for him. And the thing hunting him will not shut up. It thanks him for showing up to die alone, spits "you sneaky bastard" when he stops fighting fair, and calls checkmate like it's already won. It is not checkmate. While it's gloating, Seo Yul Cross wires the sixth sense skill he already had with the live map of the dungeon, and the system coughs up something brand new: spin block. Blue energy snaps into a geometric pattern around him, and the cornered man is suddenly holding a card nobody knew was in the deck. He spends about 1 swing learning the new toy. So this is how I'm supposed to use it, and the fight stops being a fight. He actually calls it comfortable, a deeply unsettling word for clearing a room of monsters, and the count hits 0, and the payout is the real headline. The tutorial flips to complete. The system asks if he'd like to return to a safe place, an offer you can already tell is wasted on him, and tucked under the congratulations is the part that matters: he's just unlocked the Labyrinth designer's exclusive skills, including one ominously named King of the Labyrinth. The half-dead rescue worker from last time walked into a tutorial and walked out holding a starter kit for building dungeons of his own. Then he reads the manual, and the manual is fantastic. His first new toy is Sphere, which forcibly imprisons enemies inside it, with a system warning to be careful that Seo Yul, being a professional and not a maniac, actually respects, and which is invisible to everyone but him. More importantly, he works out the real engine of his class. He doesn't level up by winning fights out in the world. He levels up by capturing monsters, hauling them into his own labyrinth, killing them in there, and feeding that into King of the Labyrinth. His dungeon is a stomach, and every strong enemy he meets is lunch. The one line that isn't a flex is the quiet one. He has to get stronger too, because whatever's coming for him later won't be ghouls in a tutorial. Then the story gives him a soft minute. He's back in the normal world, where the only monster is a coworker named Yeon Hee who looks ready to strangle him. She's demanding to know where exactly he thinks he's going to find Senior Seo Yul, while Senior Seo Yul stands right there, half listening, quietly turning over his new powers in his hands. A neighbor's kid hands him a bag of apples, her mom's leftovers, the kind of small kindness that's been building between these two families for about 5 years. The series wants you to love this normal little life right before it sets it on fire. And right on cue, smoke, screaming, a hotel with something very wrong inside it. A family is losing it because their little girl So-mi is still trapped in a room up there, except this isn't a fire, it's a dungeon break. The moment a neglected gate splits open and monsters start pouring into a building full of civilians. So Seo Yul does the most Seo Yul thing: he hands the apples back to Yeon Hee, apologizes for the timing, and says he has to get to work for the rescue department, because work for him means walking into the thing everyone else is sprinting away from. Somebody grabs him on the way in. You can't go in there alone, it's too dangerous. And his answer is the whole rotten economics of this world. The local guild was supposed to clear this gate, but guilds don't bother with low-grade ones, no money in small monsters, so it sat ignored until it festered into a dungeon break, and now a kid is trapped because grown men with swords decided she wasn't profitable. Strip away the system windows, and that's the small, stubborn thing this story is really about. A little girl is about to die over a rounding error in somebody's budget, and Seo Yul sees the only person he's ever wanted to be, the one who goes in. So he goes in. There's one wrinkle that keeps him interesting instead of merely noble. He's also going in because he has something he wants to test. He steps through the gate ahead of his team, finds a room full of goblins, and instead of just swinging, he starts building. Sphere blooms into existence beside one of them. The rescue is real, but it's also a field trial for a power only he can see, humanity's newest dungeon architect using a low-grade disaster as his personal lab. And then a bigger, nastier shadow lunges out of the dark, and Seo Yul lifts his ornate sword to meet it without a flicker of panic, because for the first time he isn't the prey trapped in someone else's maze. He's the master of this one. The real show, he decides, starts now, and it cuts to black, daring you not to come back. A normal man does not stand in a dungeon and call a boss monster over like it wandered onto his lawn. Seo Yul does because the rescue worker who died at the bottom of a gate last time woke up with a hidden class, the Labyrinth Architect, and he has spent this whole break turning a goblin pack into his own personal pest problem on purpose. Meet the one he's baiting, the Red Goblin, a one-star creature that's a regular goblin in every single way but one, and it's the one that matters. These things hunt smart and move as a pack around their leader, which is normally a real problem, unless you're the guy who herded them exactly where you wanted them, because that's the whole trick. Out in the open, the goblins are clever pack hunters, but the second they step inside his labyrinth, the food chain flips, and the things that do the hunting become the ones getting hunted. He notices they're starting to get used to the maze, so he files them away to keep an eye on as he goes. It's a plan that looks like recklessness right up until you notice the walls are on his side, and the maze wasn't just a flex. The goblins had been working the place by scent, sniffing out the humans still hiding in it, and a girl named Somi was running out of time before they caught hers. So when a kid stares up at him and asks in total disbelief if Uncle really wiped out every last goblin by himself, Seo Yul gives them the only line that matters: you don't have to worry anymore. For a guy who runs a rescue department, that one sentence is basically the entire job description. There's a clock on the rest of it. He's powering the labyrinth with a cluster of glowing orbs, and every orb the goblins chew up makes the whole place weaker, so standing in an elevator with his arms crossed, he decides he'd rather finish the boss now than wait for the orbs to bleed out under him. Bringing the team down would just be one more thing that can go wrong, so he makes the call rescue. Team leaders are specifically not supposed to make. He goes in alone, and in a cluster of small insects, somewhere back in the dark, the Red Goblin is already watching him do it. This is where the hidden class finally earns its name. A status screen flares up beside him, and there it is in writing. Labyrinth Architect. Skills: reading King of the Labyrinth, Spear, and Silent Wave. Magic power sitting fat at 90. He's wrapped in a swirl of purple energy with a spear in hand and a grand total of 30 gold to his name, which is a weirdly thin bank balance for a man who awakened as a walking dungeon. Then the boss shows up in person. The Red Goblin King comes stalking out, a hulking, blonde, scowling brute, and instead of swinging, it opens with trash talk. It asks if Seo can even lift his sword anymore, then reminds him it invested 2 million won in him, like he's a stock that underperformed, and insists a king like itself deserves a fitting display. Are you scared of me? Seo, tired but oddly light on his feet, doesn't take the bait or the monologue. He just tells it to quit chewing on his orbs and come here. Then he lets the architecture answer for him. While the king is still performing, a glowing circular device built into the labyrinth flares to life, an inescapable repulsion device, the kind woven into any labyrinth he builds, and a spike ceiling drops in over the kill. A level up banner flashes. All that big talk ends on one dry farewell that Seo very much did not mean as a goodbye to himself. And the reed clicks into place. The traps were worth it. This fight felt nothing like the ones that used to nearly kill him, and that gap is the entire point of waking up as a labyrinth architect. He'd only come down today to test the waters. He leaves certain he can handle this whole thing on his own. He doesn't get to enjoy it for long. His backup, an older man with gray hair and glasses, has been waiting outside this entire time and is not having it, because he watches Seo stroll out of a cleared dungeon by himself and basically loses it, demanding to know what in the world he's doing soloing the place and calling him a punk for the trouble. Then, because he's that exact kind of coworker, he adds that his memory might improve dramatically if Seo buys him some beef. The good mood lasts right up until the suits arrive. A polished operator walks straight over. Kwon Sung, soon of the Hanwol Guild, confirms Seo's with the rescue department and leads with a sincere thank you for his cooperation in resolving the dungeon break. When a guild man opens with gratitude this smooth, the favor is usually already in the mail. Sure enough, the thanks slide into the actual pitch if Seo could refrain from giving any interviews about the incident. The Hanwol Guild will gladly cover the damages and sponsor him on top. Seo clocks it for exactly what it is, the quiet, well-rehearsed way the big guilds buy people's silence. And the man barely hides the logic. The public trusts the big guild hunters, the ranks that run all the way up to S, because they believe those hunters will keep them safe. So when one of them gently rewrites what happened inside a dungeon, everyone nods along. The actions of guilds that exploit that trust are the one thing that genuinely makes Seo's jaw tighten. And the worst part is that the man across the table isn't wrong about how it works, stripped of the manners. The ask is simple: keep your head down, because more attention only drags in the Hunter Association and blows the whole thing out of proportion. And surely a reasonable man can do that, right? So here's the cold arithmetic Seo lands on. He's right to be furious, and there is nothing good for him to gain by attracting more attention right now. So he swallows it. He doesn't face the table alone, though. A young woman with long, light hair and a serious look has quietly taken the spot beside him, looking the guild down with him. The rescue worker who just soloed a dungeon king gets handed a bribe to pretend it never happened, and for now he takes the silence and banks the grudge. The next time a guild this slick comes to buy his quiet, he's going to have a labyrinth ready for them too. Here's a power fantasy with a catch: the strongest hidden class in the world comes with a maintenance bill. Last we left him, Seo Yul woke up as the Labyrinth Architect, the class that designs the traps and the monsters living inside his own dungeon, and the first thing the job teaches him is that fixing the cracked walls and respawning everything he killed costs an insane amount of money. Turns out owning a personal labyrinth is less god. Tier flex and more congratulations. You're a landlord now. And he's paying for all of it in gold, the currency every hunter runs on. So the man who can build death, mazes out of thin air, is currently sitting there counting coins, and the number that's been eating him is brutal patching the place up runs about twice his monthly paycheck. In his head, it's stopped being a rescue job and become an investment he has to earn back, which is a deeply unromantic way to look at having the most broken power on the continent. He also decides nobody at work gets to know what he is yet, which would be a cleaner's secret if his coworkers weren't already side-eyeing him like he grew a second head. The cover story is simpler anyway. He's just a guy handed a 2-day vacation after the whole hotel dungeon break mess. Naturally, the second he sits down to enjoy that vacation, the phone rings. It's Lee Jung-hae from the surveillance department, and Seo Yul's first and only thought is why this woman is calling him on his one day off. Her angle is shameless. She figures being on vacation just means he's got nothing better to do than put those scout skills of his to work. What she actually wants is for him to find someone, and she's so sure of the bait that she promises he'll want to hunt the guy down himself the moment he hears the name. When that doesn't land instantly, she drops the ace every Korean knows works: please, she'll buy him beef. Then she says it Kang Taeyazan, and suddenly the begging makes sense. Cut to somewhere else entirely: an old man hunched over a board of Korean chess who calls out the young guy who's been hovering and watching the game for a while. He tells the kid he just made a bad move and asks, almost lazily, whether he even knows how to play jungi. The kind of question that sounds like small talk and absolutely is not. He can read the kid too, because the boy's leaking the kind of dark red aura only seriously powerful awakened give off, the type of thing that makes you stand out in a crowd whether you want to or not. And off to the side, the scout who tailed him here is asking the exact question the audience is: wait, is this harmless old man at the chessboard really the guy we came for? Then the reveal lands. The unassuming old man losing at park bench jungi is Kang Taeyazan, an S-rank hunter, a weapon master, one of the precious few S ranks in all of Korea, and the kind of monster who can turn anything in his hands into a deadly weapon. Seo Yul exhales. My worries were for nothing. This is definitely him. The legend was just out here pretending to lose at a park bench board game. Meanwhile, a colleague finally tracks Seo Yul down and is not thrilled about it. They've been looking everywhere. The trainees are already gathered, time to go. The whole exchange is one long needle. The colleague basically telling him he'd be a great hunter if he could just shut up occasionally, and Seo Yul deflecting with a breezy. My job here's done, so I'll be heading out. He is, of course, not heading out, and when someone clocks him and guesses surveillance department, he sets the record straight. No, he scouts for the rescue department, thanks, which lands like an old running joke between people who haven't crossed paths in a while. And now the two threads snap together. Because the reason all those trainees are gathered is that Kang Taeyazan himself is the one running their test. One of them's been running his mouth. So the S rank zeroes in with the kind of smile that should scare people more than it does, and says he wants to test that smart mouth personally. Then he spells out the rule his whole legend is built on: your strength isn't fixed. It climbs with how well you actually master your weapon. Every awaken gets dealt their own starting hand, but proficiency is the part you can keep raising, and it's the part that turned this old man into an S rank. The actual exam, though, isn't a sparring match. It's a question to wield a sword properly. Taeyazan asks, "What do you think it really takes?" And he lets it hang there and tells them that one question is the only reason any of them are standing in front of him. One trainee doesn't even hesitate. He says he believes the answer is simply the will to swing the weapon, not the muscle, not the magic, the willingness to actually bring it down on something. And the weapon master, who has heard every clever answer there is, just nods. That's the correct one. You have potential. So the old man does the thing nobody expected. He picks a disciple. He admits it cuts against the plan he walked in with, but the rule's simple. Each of them only has to prove the answer they gave, and to the one he's chosen, he asks the single question that matters now: will you accept? The answer comes back instantly. I accept. Just like that, the S-rank weapon master has a student, and being chosen by a man like that is a straight shot at the top of the hunter ladder. So step back and look at the board. Because this whole stretch is the quiet breather between the swinging Seo Yul has learned his god class quietly bankrupts him unless he makes it pay. Lee Jung-hae dragged him off vacation to confirm the legendary Kang Taezan, and Taezan just minted himself a brand new disciple. 3 threads, 1 pressure. The man with the most dangerous power in the room now has to turn it into something that pays for itself. Taezan caps it with the warmest thing a gruff S rank is capable of: a single kid, and all 3 of these threads are about to start pulling on the same rope. Everyone in this room has Seo Yul pegged as a nobody who bluffed his way in, so when the old master points him at a slab of dark stone that supposedly only the strongest awakeners alive can crack, the smart money is on him passing out. Then he hits it once and the whole thing shatters like cheap drywall, and the same crowd that was sneering a second ago has to do the math out loud. He mastered the Dragon King's swordsmanship. So why is a man this strong slumming it as a rescue department scout? That's the question the whole episode is built on, and it doesn't get to coast because the answer is wrapped around a trial, a rival, and a girl who's about to be taken. Back up to how the test actually works. The old man is offering the best prize in the building. He'll personally pass his own skill down to whoever proves themselves, and the catch he says out loud is brutal. Most people who try either fail on the spot or pass out cold, the second his power crashes over them. To even attempt the stone, you first have to survive him pouring that skill into you. And it is not gentle. One of the candidates is buckling where he kneels, gasping that he can't breathe, and might black out, white, knuckling it, because the only way through is to not faint first. As the master's aura coils around them, a system line ticks up a small resistance buff, and he tells the survivors they've both got the aptitude before asking the one question that matters: who proves themselves first. So it's Seo Yul's turn. The old man waves him up with a board next, kid, and Seo Yul decides the simplest answer is the loudest one, and detonates the stone with raw strength. The ether stone broke that easily? Somebody chokes out, and just like that, the rescue department. Nobody is the most interesting person in the room. The candidate who couldn't crack his takes it about as well as you'd expect. He immediately decides Seo Yul cheated, sneering that he was suspicious from the moment he got called up alongside the old master. But here's the twist: the rival missed. Smashing the stone was never the real exam. The master had asked each of them why they wield a weapon at all, and Seo Yul's blunt, unpolished answer, "to prove my own answer," is the one he calls correct. Seo Yul will be the first to admit the other guy is stronger in raw power. This test just wasn't about raw power. And the man who runs toward people in danger for a living already knew exactly what he was swinging that blade for. Then the rival finally gets a name, Noe, and a chip on his shoulder to match. He flatly concedes Seo Yul is far stronger than he is, but for Noe, the answer to why fight was settled a long time ago. It's why he clawed his way into becoming a bureau hunter, and why he's convinced he has to keep getting stronger no matter the cost, alone in the dark, with a massive shadow rising up in front of him. He isn't really a villain yet, just a guy whose whole identity is built on closing a gap Seo Yul made look unfairly wide. So the old man makes it official: from today, you're my disciple, and pairs it with the one rule his entire style runs on: no matter what weapon ends up in your hands, you have to know yourself before it gives you its real power. Seo Yul just says thank you half, apologizes to the senior he edged out, and gets waved toward a table laid out with weapons and tools to choose from. After a lifetime of being the guy who saves everyone else, somebody finally decided to invest in him. And then, because nothing warm in this genre survives very long, the moment dies, a huge shadow unfolds out of the dark. What the hell is that? Somebody breathes, and the master's voice drops to one warning word: kid. Cut to the wound underneath all of this. A thug from Jin, Tae's crew, is standing over a beaten kid in the rubble, playing heartbroken classmate while he twists the knife. Your friend took a dive off the roof, and now you've got no one left. You're all alone. The cruelest part is how quiet he keeps it. Then he name drops the real casualty, almost as an afterthought to think our Yanhee ended up like this, just for being a little nosy. And somewhere close, that same crew is loading a captive into a car with a smile on it. We're leaving now. Somewhere they can play to their heart's content, and giving the only order that matters, keep a close eye on her. Don't let her escape. Whoever she is, she's leverage. Meanwhile, back at the department, someone's at the door practically begging for 1 minute with Chief Seo Yul, only to get stonewalled by 2 guards flatly insisting nobody goes inside. The grace note underneath it is pure office envy. Must be nice becoming an S-rank hunter's disciple overnight, muttered by people clocking out on time while the news still hasn't caught up to the man it's about. And that man handed his pick of the whole table. Seo Yul reaches past the flashy options and grabs a spear so plain its status screen practically apologizes for it. Grade normal. Durability 50 out of 50. Is that thing really enough? He just says, yeah, this is all I need, because the only stat that matters is at the bottom, where its attack power scales with the user's will and surroundings, instead of its rarity. For a guy who built a career doing more with less, it's almost on brand. And then it all slams shut. Word lands that Yanhee, the girl from that ugly little scene, has just been dragged off by a gang, and the only question anyone can force out, taken by who exactly, hangs in the air, while a masked figure hauls her into the dark. The last thing we get is a voice cracking out his name, Seo Yul, and the rescue chief's next call out just got personal. He spent this whole stretch proving he can break the unbreakable thing right in front of him. Now somebody's about to find out what he does when it's a person on the line instead of a rock. Here's the most dangerous idea this whole story has put on the table, and we're opening right on it. A hunter who is losing decides to win by sabotaging his own dungeon. Seo Yul is ringed in by a swarm that will not stop coming, and the only exit he's got is also a trap with a price. Bait them deeper into the labyrinth, and the whole thing comes down on everyone, himself included. He calls it his last resort and pulls the trigger anyway. A status screen floats up, the enemy count starts dropping fast, and the question that should keep you here is simple: does the maze kill the monsters? Or does it bury the man running it? To understand why a rescue chief is gambling his life on a collapsing hallway, rewind to how this group walked in. Every hunter knows the rule: when a dungeon breaks and nobody can put it back, they wall the zone off and they leave it alone. So naturally we get a party strolling straight into that exact place. A hired B, rank hunter in tow, killing the nerves with bravado the way people do right before a story, makes them regret it. The monsters in here are supposed to be weak. A guy named Jinte said so. Somebody actually asks the line that doom flags itself in any language. You're not scared, are you? While another one quietly wonders if it's really okay to come this far in. Spoiler from the music, it is not. The confidence lasts exactly until someone hisses something's coming. Get back. Then whatever's been waiting in the dark comes out. A woman recoils screaming, and the party's whole weak monsters theory dies on the spot. Turns out the sign on the door wasn't a suggestion, and Jinte was very wrong, and here's the guy the story actually belongs to. Strip the powers away for a second and look at the choice on the table. A girl named Yeon, he, went missing into a zone the system gave up on, and the only person willing to walk through that entrance is the man whose entire job is walking through that entrance. Seo Yul didn't come for treasure or glory. He came because somebody filed a missing persons report, and to him that sentence is the whole reason to be alive. It gets darker, too. A nameplate reads Kang Jung, Min, Vanguard Department, and word is he's the one who told the boss where Yeon he was, so this isn't a girl who wandered off, this is a girl who was dragged. Everyone around Seo Yul, his own people included, is begging him to run back the way he came and asking why he'd go in alone. He goes in alone, a monster called a Stinghawk is already circling. So file that one for later. Sword out, Seo Yul wades into the first wave, and his red is almost insulting. These little green things are even weaker than the red goblins he's tangled with before. The problem was never any one of them. It's that there are a lot of one of them. Facing the swarm himself, he admits the only weapon they've really got is numbers, which would be comforting if numbers weren't exactly the thing that kills you down here. They've been rushing him since the entrance. They close in from every side, and the man with a kidnapped girl to find is rapidly running out of the one thing the swarm has plenty of time. So this is where the title stops being a name and starts being a strategy. Seo Yul can't stab an endless mob, so he quits fighting the monsters and starts fighting the floor plan, because the dungeon he's standing in answers to him. The hidden Labyrinth Architect class makes the maze his, to shape and expand on the fly, which means his real weapon isn't the sword, it's the room. He reels the swarm deeper, taunting, "Do you guys like playing in the water?" And the corridors rearrange to drown and crush them for him, while that status screen ticks the enemy count down rapidly. It is the most overpowered janitor's closet in fiction, with exactly one bill attached. Pull them in too far, and the labyrinth collapses on everyone. Every clever kill is a withdrawal from a fortress he's going to have to rebuild. With the swarm finally packed into the room he wanted them in, Seo Yul plants his feet and the energy starts winding up. And finally he says, like a man closing a tab he's been meaning to close all day, and then he lets the whole thing go at full charge. The maze did the softening. This is the punctuation, and then he gets the world's least heroic reward cleanup. The area goes quiet, and his very first thought isn't victory. It's that restoring the labyrinth after this mess is going to be a nightmare all over again, because the price of fighting with your own dungeon is having to rebuild your own dungeon. He's not even alone in being miserable. The B-rank hunter dragged along with him is fully unraveling, snapping that he's already furious because they're lost, that there are too many to handle, demanding to know why he's the one who has to be running away. Hero saves the day, then immediately starts the chores. Because of course it isn't over. Escape routes in this genre come pre-stocked. More monsters boil up ahead, insect-looking things crawling over the rocks, and the B-rank hunter does the one thing he's good at, yelping that there are more in front of them and begging Seo Yul to do something. So Seo Yul does something. He launches into a flying kick and keeps the line moving. Running away, it turns out, still involves a tremendous amount of fighting, and just as you've settled into Monster of the Week mode, the story pivots and reminds you why anyone is down here in the first place. Yeon. He, somewhere away from the swarm, a man in glasses squares up to a frightened woman. She manages, "Who are you?" And he answers with the most punchable energy available that he's an administration hunter, you brat. Because this was never only about the monsters. Somebody dragged Yeon, he, into this sealed grave on purpose, and the last thing said is the accusation. Everyone's rescue has been pointed at from the start. The ones who dragged Yeon, he, here, is it you guys? Roll credits there, and good luck not clicking next. Here's a fun one. The man everybody in this dungeon is treating like the help turns out to be the most dangerous thing down here. Seo Yul does the one job nobody sane volunteers for. He walks into monster-infested dungeons and drags living people back out. So when we drop in, he's already deep in the dark with a sword up, a wounded group at his back, and something with claws between them and the exit. And the guy he's stuck saving isn't scared of the monster. He's waving cash, demanding to be guided to the way out, like a bureau hunter is a tour guide you can tip. Hold on to that, because money is about to be the most dangerous thing down here, and it isn't the part with teeth. There's a reason Seo Yul is putting up with this, and her name is Yeon He. She's who he came down here for. She's crying, which somebody quietly notes is the first time anyone's seen it happen, and she just wants out. Mister, just ignore him. Let's go. He doesn't make a speech about it. He just promises he'll wrap this up fast and walk her outside. The way you promise a kid you'll handle the scary thing so they don't have to look at it. The loudmouth, meanwhile, wants you to know exactly who he is. Do you even know who I am? He sneers, then answers himself. Park Jin, Tae, son of Supreme Court Justice Park Bum, Jin, translation, a rap sheet with a last name for a shield school violence, theft, drunk driving, the greatest hits of a kid who learned early that consequences are for other people. He won't even believe Seo Yul is a real bureau hunter. If you were, I'd know just by looking at your face. But the family name lands like a wet firework, so Park reaches for the only other tool he's ever owned: more money. Tempting me with money too, Seo Yul notes, almost bored, because he's clocked the pattern. This is the rare villain whose superpower is a wallet, and the dungeon doesn't take his card. When charm and cash both bounce off, Park does what cornered bullies do. He quits negotiating and starts screaming for blood. Just die along with that bastard. His crew snarls, swinging to kill, except nobody's begging, and he's the only one panicking. So Seo Yul recalibrates. I was just going to teach you a lesson, but I guess that won't do. The single most ominous sentence a man with a sword can say while lowering his expectations. And the math checks out. You guys were the ones who tried to kill me first, right? The lesson plan is cancelled. Cut to the people actually fighting him, and the confidence is already curdling. They'd pegged him as a bureau hunter D, rank at best. If he were really B rank, there's no way I wouldn't know his face. So why the same guy thinks as he skids backward, am I being pushed back? This guy, is he really a bureau hunter? The question they keep asking is the answer they don't want. And Seo Yul can't resist the one dig that'll actually sting them. Did you buy your B rank qualification with money? Perfect. Because in Park's world, the answer is always yes. You can buy a rank. You can buy anything. Then comes the reveal that flips the fight. Seo Yul has been quietly grinding, his stats leveling up off the hornets that infest this place, until he crosses a line he names out loud. I've finally surpassed a B rank hunter. So when the enemies panic and ask whether that guy was really B rank, the answer is worse than they feared. He was. Now he's more. They spent the whole fight arguing about a ceiling he'd already broken through. A mere bureau hunter dares, Park spits, and you can watch the real bewilderment cross the face of a man who's never been on this side of it. How has nothing ever hit me like this before? Because, Jin Tae, you bought your way out of every other room. Cornered for real. Park finally says the quiet part as a creed. That's just how the world is, he insists. If you're upset, then have some power or money or whatever, as if cruelty is just the weather and the only sin is being too poor to dodge it. Seo Yul's verdict is colder and a lot shorter. A guy beyond help like you is better off not existing. And then he hands down the sentence to fit the crime. He leaves Park Jin, Tae to the hungry beasts. The exact monsters Park was too important to be afraid of an hour ago. Here's the part that actually matters to Seo Yul, though. The whole reason he was ever down there was a kidnapping, the abduction of Yeon, over in the Yellow Bell district. With the loudest threat finally dealt with, that thread closes the clean way. Yeon is returned to the arms of her family. He didn't come for money or to win an argument with a rich kid. He came to bring one person home, and he did. And a justice's son doesn't just vanish quietly. Someone with pull greased that door, so the grown-ups start asking, who let Park Jin Tae into Yellow Bell from above, and other officials start getting caught in the same net. He barely gets to breathe before the system hands him a far bigger problem. A new quest appears: defeat the Queen Hornet, the apex of the entire swarm within 30 days, and the catch is nasty. His proficiency against insect monsters drops by 50% for the attempt, so the exact creatures he just leveled up on are suddenly twice as hard. It's the story quietly telling you the hornets you watched him farm were never the real threat. There's a queen, and now there's a clock. She won't be easy to catch, he admits, and then says the part that decides it: I want her. Which is why he doesn't celebrate. He's got somewhere else to be today, so he heads out first. A queen in 30 days means he has to be fully prepared, and right now he isn't. We close on a door, a voice that's clearly done waiting for him. You're late, and 3 words that turn this from a rescue story into a grind training starts right now. Long before Seo Yul is building dungeons of his own, he is just the new kid. A brutal old master drags into a dojo to be broken down on day 1, and by the time this flashback closes, a star-rank monster is loose. The master is gone, and the second-place student is the only body standing between it and a room full of trainees. But first, the welcome. Seo Yul walks up to a quiet old dojo and gets exactly the reception you'd expect from a legendary hardass: a flat "you're late," a jerk of the head to come in, and we're starting your training immediately. No tea, no tour, just this is the place, and the clock is already running. The master doesn't believe in easing anyone in, and he's careful to puncture any ego on arrival, even as a brand new direct disciple. There are people ranked above you, so don't feel too pressured. Then, for show and tell, he skips the textbook and holds up a trophy. The jawbone he tore off a unique monster called an iron ghoul, the first creature that ever dragged him to the brink of death. It's equal parts heirloom and warning: this is the tier you're training toward, and it nearly finished me. Seo Yul just answers, I'm ready, master, which is either pure confidence or a man who has not fully thought this through. So the master points him at the thing and says you give it a try, and Seo Yul walks up and starts working it over. He already knows he can't finish it the way his master could. His whole goal is the quiet, I can at least do this much. Turns out that's plenty to stop the room cold. The onlookers go from skeptical to slack, jawed, muttering incredible, and what is his body even made of? Because the jawbone doesn't budge an inch, and he keeps coming anyway. Even the master sounds caught off guard. This is unexpected. The man who couldn't be bothered to say hello an hour ago watches all that, basically admits the kid's physique is a freak of nature, and immediately tells him to keep challenging himself. Because around here, praise comes with homework stapled to it. Not everyone's charmed. Seo Yul came in as a direct disciple, the master's own pick, and he finished second overall, and the disciples ranked beneath him are openly tired of it. They corner him with the polite version of a grudge. It's easy for him to be relaxed up there, but the rest of them can't afford to be, and one of them can't resist the jab. You came in second place, senior. His answer is almost annoyingly decent. We all came here to succeed together. Strip away the ranking and the resentment. And that's the thing he keeps saying and keeps meaning, and it's exactly the kind of thing that makes the people resenting you resent you a little more. Here's the part that really gets under their skin. For the next 2 solid weeks, the guy they want to hate shows up earliest, trains like a man with a personal grudge against rest, stays latest and somehow gets along with everyone, so there's nothing to actually pin on him. As one rival admits while they trade blows with wooden practice swords, that's the irritating part. You can't even dislike him properly. Once the dojo stops being the whole world, the training spills out into actual paydays, hunting and capturing monsters for cash, trading gossip about which guilds are diving which dungeons. On a walkout, the talk turns to the Overcross Guild, heading into a nearby dungeon, and Seo Yul casually knows way too much about how they run. When someone points it out, he waves it off. He just happened to work for that guild for a short while. It's a throwaway line that's very obviously sitting on top of a whole backstory, and you start to notice he keeps doing this. The day job itself is gloriously mercenary. They bag a steel-blood orc in under a day, because, as one of them puts it while loading the catch, salaries don't just grow on trees, they come from selling guys like this. When a nervous rookie asks if it's even legal to capture monsters, the answer is a breezy normally no, and they keep working anyway. The orc's tribal necklace earns exactly 1 appraising glance and a verdict of necklace from a trash, a rough afternoon for the orc's fashion sense, and quietly, the kind of detail that tells you this world's ships captured monsters around like cargo. And here's where the easy stretch runs out of road. An emergency blast cuts through the calm. A star-rank boss monster that was being transported has broken free and is on a rampage. And the Korea Martial Arts Association is begging every available team for backup. The timing is brutal. The master happens to be away from the dojo today, which leaves the students with no one between them and a loose boss. Remember that iron ghoul jawbone nobody could dent? This is that tier of monster, off its leash, with the one man strong enough to handle it nowhere in the building. So Seo Yul makes the call himself. The students are his to protect. And we go out staring up at the thing they're supposed to handle, a towering monster filling a dark hall, eyes burning, while a disciple can barely choke out a terrified bee. But another tries to start master and can't finish it because the master isn't here. The trainee who placed second, the one they couldn't decide whether to resent or respect, just decided he's not waiting for permission, and next time he finds out exactly how far behind his teacher he still is. Here's a fun way to meet a guy while he's losing badly and narrating his own eulogy in real time. We find him mid-fight, down on a knee, barely able to stand, looking back on his whole life like a man balancing a ledger he knows comes out red. Ever since he joined the Overcross Guild, he thought of himself as a genius, back when being more of a monster than everyone else felt like the natural privilege of the strong, right up until the world showed him how cruel it could be. So he swallowed it and ground out 2 whole years here because some stubborn part of him still wanted to make the world a little better. It's a genuinely sympathetic speech. It'd land harder if the whole point of it weren't about to be one specific man, because the speech curdles and it has a target, Seo Yul. To the guy bleeding out, Seo Yul wasn't just another strong hunter, he was more of a monster than that, and the only review he's got breath left for is a flat "you bad bastard," which is rich. Since Seo Yul is the one who calmly dragged him into this maze in the first place, acting all cool about it, the rescue chief plays a lot dirtier on his own turf than the job title lets on, and that's the whole trick. His hidden class makes an entire labyrinth, the walls, the monsters, the boss, all of it answers to him. When most hunters would be cornered, he just fights you inside a dungeon that does whatever he says. The catch is that everything he spends in there is his to lose and his to rebuild. He's not in here alone either. A younger teammate cries out for him, a shaky S, Seo Yul Hyung, the kind of thing you only yell when you've been holding past your limit. Seo Yul tells the kid he did well, then hands him the 4 words every overworked senior eventually says to a junior, "Leave the rest to me." Translation, go sit down, I've got the monster, so who's worth all this buildup? A steel blood orc, a slab of red muscle with a title it earned, because this thing is a high-ranking orc and Seo Yul knows it. His own read is the worrying part. It'll be tough to face this one alone right now, especially since he just walked out of another fight at Overcross and is running on fumes. Somebody nearby can't believe it either. Wait, he just finished fighting and he's doing this? Yes, he is. And to prove it, he goes full on assault, kicking clean through one of his own labyrinth walls to reach it. Here's where being a one-man dungeon stops being a cheat code and starts being a budget. Seo Yul pulls up his labyrinth status and hits a wall his ordinary monsters just can't pry open a gap in something this tough. He's got a stronger option and visibly hates reaching for it, muttering that he didn't want to use this because the cost keeps piling up, but the exhaustion and the orc don't give him a vote, so he makes the call. He's been dodging time to bring that guy out, and this is the flex the whole class exists for. The guy he didn't want to use isn't a guy at all. It's his labyrinth boss, the apex monster of his own dungeon, and Seo Yul sicks it on the orc like a man unleashing the very large, very angry thing he keeps in the basement. It crashes in. The orc suddenly has something its own size to deal with, and Seo Yul finally breathes one word, finally, because there it is, an opening. Most hunters bring a sword to a boss fight. This one brings a boss. The opening costs him, though, and the bill arrives fast. The orc is so brutal that his prized labyrinth boss gets reduced to nothing in front of him, and the dungeon starts charging him for it, a cold status line informing him that monster respawning is now disabled. The dungeon that fights for him just hung a closed sign on reinforcements mid, boss, fight. The magic system version of your power cutting out during a final exam. But he didn't trade his strongest piece for nothing. He traded it for a window, and he doesn't get greedy with it. He gets surgical. He levels a big ornate gun at the cracked open orc and calls it one more shot. And because this is his maze, the floor's on his side too. One of his pre-set labyrinth traps snaps shut on the orc, the instant it's distracted. He sacrificed the giant monster to set up the cheap shot. Honestly, respect. Then he tallies it, and it's a win with an asterisk. He lost his labyrinth boss outright. The losses are heavy this time, but without that strength, catching a monster like this would have stayed a fantasy. So, looks like it paid off. He barely gets to enjoy the math. A flat Hun slips out, because the orc, instead of dying politely, drops into a berserk state. Apparently nobody told the steel blood orc the fight was supposed to be over. Good news and bad news land together. Good news, all the trainees are out, evacuated, clear of the mess. Bad news, the mess is the entire labyrinth, now coming down around everyone's ears thanks to how hard this got. So Seo Yul makes the only sane call left and takes the berserk orc outside on the airtight logic that it's much harder to be crushed by a collapsing dungeon when you're no longer standing inside it. And this is where the story saves, its real surprise, spent and shaking, his muscles screaming just from blocking the orc's heavier swings. Seo Yul braces for the moment his body finally gives, and instead something else happens. His body feels different than before. This is more than the results of his training, he realizes, because power just keeps surging through him, wave after wave, even as it feels like the whole of him might break. And here's the line that should worry everyone who cares about him somewhere under all that strain. He's grinning. Because it's actually fun. Power that breaks your body and feels good doing it is exactly the kind of gift that arrives with a bill. We end right there, the rescue chief who walked in on fumes, now coming apart and lighting up at once, whatever just woke up inside him. Next time we find out what it costs. Most people cornered in a dungeon by a horned monster twice their size are doing the quiet math on how badly this ends. Seo Yul is grinning and calling it kind of fun. He's the chief of a rescue squad, the guy whose entire job is walking into these things to drag other people back out, and right now he's reading the monster like a chess problem instead of a death sentence. He's noticed that even mid-frenzy the thing is still thinking, which means there's a half second where its mind goes fuzzy, and that gap is the only opening he needs. So in that beat, he does exactly what he told himself to, grabs a blade and commits everything, dumping every last scrap of energy he has into one strike instead of saving any for later. Because down here, if this doesn't land, there is no later. It lands. The monster goes down, a notification confirms he's just earned a unique grade weapon called the demonic dagger off the kill. And Seo Yul looks at the thing that spent the last few minutes trying to gut him and actually says thanks because of you, the way you'd thank a vending machine that finally dropped the good prize. Then the adrenaline drains out of him, and so does he. Here's the twist that recontextualizes the whole brawl: that life or death monster fight wasn't a real dungeon. It was a training trial, and the all-out finisher emptied his tank completely. An ally is shaking him, telling him he absolutely cannot fall asleep right now, asking if he's all right, and Seo Yul just wants to know if he passed, if he can finally move on to the next stage of training. He collapses on the floor and comes to with someone going finally awake. Huh. He treats practice like it's the real thing, which tells you the actual fight this time is not against a monster at all. Cut to the next day at Management Bureau headquarters, where this story quietly stops being about monsters and starts being about people in suits. There's been an incident involving Overcross. One of the big, rich guilds, a rescue went sideways, and now the question of who's to blame is up for grabs. So a press scrum forms, and it's all the same question wearing different hats. Did Seo Yul really bring that monster down? Wasn't the whole rescue reckless? Wasn't the Bureau's own response lacking? Everyone shouting over everyone to land the soundbite. Seo Yul does the responsible chief thing and opens by apologizing to all the victims, taking the weight onto himself while the guild that caused it hides behind the noise. And that's when the real ambush shows up, and it's not a monster, it's a camera. There's a YouTuber here that everyone clocks on sight as a guy the big guilds are paying to post slanted videos, and he's running it live, baiting Seo Yul to snap on air, so the clip writes itself. The people around him close ranks with the only sane advice you can give, a man being provoked on a live stream, just ignore him. Arguing back only hurts you more. Seo Yul listens to all that good advice, then does the exact opposite. He says he'll be right back and walks straight toward the camera he was told to ignore, because he's decided the fastest way to kill a slanted live video is to step in front of it on purpose. The man whose whole job is walking toward the thing everyone else runs from is now doing it on broadcast. On camera, he flips the whole thing around. He calls out the heckler running the show by name. Isn't that right, June? Juan? And announces he's going to say his piece in real time on their own feed, with no edit to hide behind. The crew's first instinct is to spin even that, muttering that he's clearly not well right now, like a man defending himself live is the unstable one. Then the muscle behind the smear shows his face, an Overcross boss they call Chief O sneers that a pup doesn't know how scary a tiger is, and gives the order to crush that loudmouth. Except the tiger line curdles in about 2 seconds, because the next sounds out of that same crew are wait, please, Going live wasn't reckless, it was a trap, and the guild's own thugs sprang it on camera. But the public crowning him is only half the verdict, and the half that actually decides his future happens in a conference room. The Bureau brass nearly come to blows over the rescue. The head of surveillance brings up his recent job to argue that in that case punishment is appropriate. Am I wrong? While the other side bristles at being told they did a sloppy job, until someone finally snaps, that's enough, both of you. They're not really arguing about whether Seo Yul did anything wrong. They're arguing about what to do now that he's suddenly a star. And the man at the head of the table settles it. Park Gwang-soo, director of the Management Bureau, looks at the chief half the room wanted punished an hour ago and lands on the opposite call. Then he's all the more a talent they can't afford to lose, and they should at least respond in kind. He's not rattled by the guild smear campaign. He's almost impressed by it. He calls it an entertaining move, like a man already plotting his answer, while someone beside him asks if he's got an alternative in mind. So it all closes on a chessboard, not a battlefield. The big guilds spent real money to turn a rescue into a scandal, and instead they turned a rescue squad chief into a name everyone knows and handed the Bureau a reason to protect him. He walked into a trial to win one fight and walked out with powerful people quietly deciding he's worth keeping and worth using. Whatever counter move they're cooking is the thread still dangling when the lights go down. Nothing says you're in trouble quite like being told to come in. Seo Yul runs a dungeon rescue team. The people who charge into a monster gate to drag survivors back out, and he's sitting on a secret the whole industry would kill for somewhere down in the dark. He woke the hidden Labyrinth Architect class, a dungeon that answers to him and nobody else, and he's very carefully hiding how strong that's made him. So when the most powerful man in the building calls him upstairs to discuss something important, that's not a meeting, that's a temperature check. Bureau Director Park Kwang. Sue waves him in, points him at a chair, and pours on the hospitality. And when a man with that much rank wants you comfortable before he talks, the comfortable part is never the point. He plays it warm first. Tea, he brewed himself. How do you like it? Then drops the real question: if Seo were graded today, what rank does he think he'd land? Seo doesn't oversell it, just says the one thing that's safely true. It definitely wouldn't be the rank he's wearing now. Both of them know that's an understatement. Only one of them knows by how much. Then comes the flattery, and it's pointed the Bureau's had its hands full, sure. But Seo has pulled off things a man at his level simply should not be able to do. He hears the price tag stapled to that, and quietly weighs whether the word labyrinth is even safe to say out loud in this room. The director, to his credit, backs off first. He won't ask how Seo got this strong, not yet, because the Bureau needs that strength more than it needs the answer. Which is the polite version of, we know you're hiding something, and we're choosing to be patient about it. Patience like that always has an expiration date. And it's worth remembering why a man who just pulls people out of dungeons rattles this many important people. The Bureau can feel a weight on him they can't see the source of, and powerful people do not enjoy a number they can't place. Which is exactly why, somewhere else in the building, the knives are already out. Why, one of them sneers, would anyone burn this much energy on a mere rescuer? And isn't that the whole reason they're shipping him off to the countryside? Supervisor An Si, Wu gets quietly handed the job of watching him. Translation: Seo Yul has become inconvenient to the wrong people, and the transfer is the bandage they're hoping makes him vanish. Then comes the turn. Nobody in the rumor mill saw coming. You don't actually think this is a dispatch, do you? And the director flips the whole thing over. Effective today, Seo Yul's rank goes up, not down. The countryside exile is really a 6-month supervisor, posting with his name stamped on it, and he somehow already knew before the personnel notice has even gone up. The people who wanted him buried just got him promoted, and the director's only note is the kicker: it's time he faced reality. The reality being that he's worth too much to throw away. Seo is a terrible liar about being thrilled. The director clocks it instantly. You don't exactly look happy about the promotion. He coughs up a flat no, of course. Congratulations with all the warmth of a parking ticket, then does the math. The Bureau doesn't hand out rank on a whim. So promoting him while pretending to exile him just means they're scared of losing a talent like him. He'll take the title. He's just not buying the smile that came with it. And here's the part they got wrong about him. Whatever address they pin on him, Seo lands on the only line that matters, no matter where I'm moved. In the end, my job as a rescuer doesn't change. Trying to break a man like that by handing him a new map was always going to be a mistake. He picks up his sword and heads back, and you get the feeling the people who set this trap are about to learn it the expensive way. The director sells the fine print like a favor. On the surface, it looks like a demotion, shipped to the sticks. Very sad, but it's locked to exactly 6 months, so rest easy. There's a string attached, of course, one favor in return, pitched as protection, so the outsiders gunning for Seo can't lay a finger on him. Seo pays it back in kind, thanking him for personally looking out for him, agreeing that since he's heading down anyway, he might as well, 2 men being extremely gracious while quietly counting what the other one owes. Park Kwang. Sue clearly thinks 6 months in the countryside is the hard part of Seo Yul's week. He has not yet met the wasps. His own crew, meanwhile, is somewhere between proud and horrified. He's a piece of work. They laugh. Who else says something like that to a man with that much rank and walks out promoted? Then it lands that he's actually leaving, and the panic sets in. How are they supposed to run rescues without him? One of them shrugs it off with the bravado of a guy who has clearly never carried anything. We'll just do it like we always do. Of course, I'm the manager. How could I not? And that confidence is not going to survive contact with the field. Because here's what the big, bad countryside exile actually is: removing a wasp nest. Seo Yul, kitted out in the field, with a glowing ornate scepter in hand, gets the straight answer. Yeah, that's the job. And then a system window upgrades pest control into something with teeth. Defeat the pinnacle of the wasp colony, the queen. Time remaining 72 hours. And the catch that makes it genuinely nasty: the Queen Scepter's royal jelly cuts performance against insect monsters by 50%. So, whatever edge a hunter normally brings to a hive, cut it in half. They tried to bury the rescue chief out in the boonies, and instead they pointed him at a queen on a clock, with his own gear sabotaging him. The only question left is whether a man who builds dungeons for a living even needs his full strength to clear someone else's nest, and that's exactly the answer. The next part has to cough up. Here's a fun way to scare a monster be so much stronger than its entire nest that you treat the raid like catching up on homework. Seo Yul has walked into a hornet nest dungeon to clear it, and that's the actual line in his head. He came to knock out some homework because when you're the Labyrinth Architect and you can rebuild a dungeon from the inside, a wall of giant hornets really is just busy work with a deadline. There are 3 days left on the quest. A junior is yelping weight senpai at his back, and the swarm is stacking numbers faster than he budgeted for. He doesn't reach for a sword. He clocks how fast they breed and starts doing math. And the math is brutally simple: take down the queen and the whole nest collapses with her. So instead of swinging at every hornet in the air, Seo Yul leans on the labyrinth's own traps. He's already dropped one called the Swarm Pit, and the bugs caught in it can't keep their balance long enough to fight back. With that number against him, he notes he can still handle the entire swarm using only the labyrinth's traps. No heroics required. The hornets stagger, an opening cracks open toward the nest, and he goes flat to the ground and starts crawling straight for it. Then he notices something that tells him he's already winning. The queen has put up defensive shields in advance, and everyone knows the queen avoids making those because they cost her too much energy. So why is she burning that energy now before he's even reached her? Between the swarm pit chewing up her swarm and these panic shields, the read is obvious: the queen is scared of him. He says it flat, almost bored. She's been wary of him, and now she's blowing what brains she's got just to get rid of him. His only reaction is a dry "I'm honored." He's not bluffing either. He stalked this labyrinth with the bare minimum of monsters on purpose, so there's nothing in here to soak up her attention but him, and the trap he built around her. So the queen plays her real card, and it was never the scepter in her hand. It's her pheromones, the one weapon that actually scares people, and she cranks them like she's trying to summon every hornet still breathing in the dungeon. Seo Yul's sixth sense flares an answer, mapping the wall of incoming bugs before it lands. Then she spends even more, breeding a glutton, a summon that eats twice as much, just to feed the swarm faster. And he reads even that the right way, if she's willing to burn this much on him, she genuinely sees him as a threat, which by his cold logic is good news. The second that glutton is gone, taking the queen is easy. Getting it gone is where the plan hits its one ugly snag. He boxes the glutton inside a containment sphere, and the thing wants out so badly that it saws off its own arm to escape it. That's the single moment Seo Yul actually blinks. Did it cut off its own arm to get free of the sphere? Add in the winged guardian whose wings are far stronger than they have any right to be, and for about half a second this looks like it might genuinely slip away from him. Then the cold settles back in. No matter how hard the thing thrashes, nothing changes. The sphere held, the plan held. The most he'll give the pair of them is a tired "you two are making this a real hassle." And here's the part the queen walked her whole army straight into. These two guardians are the only ones left standing in his territory right now, and the territory answers to him. It isn't even the operation he drew up first, but ever since he rebuilt this labyrinth, every wall, every angle, every dead end belongs to Seo Yul. So going off, plan costs him nothing. Not the fight he wanted, he admits with a shrug, but honestly, not bad either. It's easy to forget this is a guy who started as a rescue chief, the one whose whole job was dragging people out of dungeons alive. Now he builds them, and standing inside a maze that bends to his will, the man who used to fear these places is the one who decides what they do. He reads the last trick fast, too. One flap of those guardian wings, that's the wing lash, and it shields both the queen and the glutton at the same time, which is exactly why nothing he threw at them stuck. He IDs it, files it, and then catches himself doing the thing every overconfident hero eventually does. Right. He mutters, "I'm the weird one out here, talking to myself in front of a room full of monsters." He says it, lets it go, and keeps right on going. Because the monologue was buying time for the punchline, he spreads his arms at the arena and finally drops the thing he's been sitting on the whole fight. He stacked traps across every inch of this place, custom, built for the two of them. The arrows aren't coming from one wall, they're coming from every angle he designed. A crossfire the Guardians never thought to watch for, and with the Queen's pheromone weapon already shut down, she's got nothing left to flip the board with. No matter how much they thrash now, nothing changes. The whole arena was the trap. They just didn't notice they were standing in it. When the dust drops, the swarm is thinned, the glutton is down, and the Queen's entire army has been spent against a labyrinth that was never going to break. What's left is one man, one ornate sword, and one furious queen at his back. He doesn't gloat. He just marks the moment quietly. It's finally just the two of us left, huh? And squares up. Everything up to now was the architect clearing his board. This is the fight every second of it was built for, and that's exactly where he leaves us hanging. Most hunters spend a boss fight trying not to die. Seo Yul spends it shopping. He's down at the bottom of his own labyrinth, sword in hand, squared off on one with the queen scepter, a regal, white-haired monster, and the first thing out of his mouth is almost fond. It's finally just the two of us, huh? The catch is that the queen's armor is too tough to crack the normal way. So for him, the real question isn't whether he wins. It's how much he gets to walk away with. Since he can't go around that armor, Seo Yul decides to go straight through it. He commits to a martial art with an ugly little price tag. It chews through his weapon's durability every time he swings, and shrugs the cost off because the destructive power makes up for it. It's the math of a man who'd rather wreck a perfectly good sword than let this drag on. I want to finish this, he says, and he means it enough to snap the blade in half if that's what digging through costs. And here's the part normal hunters don't get to do. The floor is on his side. He triggers a trap he'd already wired into the room, blast block, and lets his own dungeon land the finisher for him. The system makes it official with a polite little congratulations, the Queen Scepter is dead. He didn't just fight the boss, he built it. A quest reward drops into his inventory, but Seo Yul isn't looking at the loot yet. For 1 second, the swagger falls away, and the old wound shows. In the end, he admits he used to be just a weakling, helpless in front of strong monsters. That memory is the whole reason he's down here grinding instead of resting. And it's why today he is certain, all over again, of the one promise that actually matters to him: he will never run away ever again. Then the swagger comes right back because there's a body on the floor and a shopping list to fill. Here's Seo Yul's actual bottleneck. Every trap he plants runs on mana, so the more traps he wants in the ground, the more mana he needs. Full stop, which is why the drop he's eyeing matters more to him than any sword could. It's a rare consumable called Queen Scepter's Royal Jelly, and the item description reads like a dare eat it, and your whole constitution changes, drastically boosting your mana sensitivity, but beware of side effects. A rare upgrade with fine print. He can't read yet. Naturally, he eats it anyway. And he immediately learns this is not a snack. Seo Yul drops to one knee as the jelly's condensed mana floods in, and now the whole job is just not losing control of it. He locks onto his breathing to keep the mana flow circulating instead of letting it tear him apart, because after everything he went through to get this thing, he refuses to waste it. Then it takes, and the payoff is obscene. Every sense he has snaps into razor focus, and the system confirms he's transformed, all of it off a single piece of royal jelly. This, he grins, is exactly why I risk my life doing quests. The warning about side effects? He files it under "I'll worry about that later," because as far as he's concerned, the loot was just the appetizer. The real main event starts now. Cleared boss. Empty dungeon. Seo Yul looks around his own labyrinth and does the math no other hero has to the only monsters he's got left are a few stray red goblins and a pool called the Lake of Corruption. Killing the Queen's Scepter unlocked a brand new trap, but a trap guards nothing if there's nothing left inside worth guarding. So the post-victory chore is gloriously unheroic. The guy just took down a boss and now he needs to restock the shelves. For the Labyrinth Architect, restocking means standing over a hive full of monster eggs and shopping for a final boss. Now, which one should I make the Labyrinth boss, he muses, before landing on the obvious pick. This one looks good, mostly because it's bigger than the others. Then he cheats. He pipes the Lake of Corruption's effect straight into the hive, and every egg gets stronger at once. And the mechanic underneath is quietly horrifying once you read it. Whatever points or traits a corpse head transfers straight into the chosen monster, especially if an awakener's body is what goes into that lake. In plain terms, Seo Yul's dungeon eats the dead to grow. He locks his pick in, the system christens the result, and the thing now incubating at the bottom of his labyrinth has a name: Vespa. He's not clearing dungeons anymore, he's manufacturing them. Then the story yanks us out of the murder hive and into the break room version of Seo Yul's life. His colleagues are gossiping that a coworker named Lee Junghai offered to treat everyone, which they read as her being secretly worried about his upcoming dispatch, a small, very normal kindness aimed at a guy who, 10 minutes ago, was deciding which egg to weaponize. They're also nosy in the worst way. Everyone keeps staring at him. He's only got a few days left before he heads back down. And what exactly has he been up to? Because anyone else would have taken the time off and gone on a trip. One of them lands shockingly close to the truth as a joke. Have you been raising some kind of rare animal? He has. It's the size of a building, and it lives in a dungeon. He does not mention this. A coworker, the table sarcastically dubs, Her Highness strolls in late, gets razzed for having the nerve to show up at all, and it's so normal, it's almost relaxing, right up until somebody notices the thing that drops the temperature. Seo Yul's nose is bleeding. Remember that throwaway warning about side effects he promised to deal with later? Later just tapped him on the shoulder. And we sign off right back underground where a huge winged shape looms over the labyrinth and a figure reaches up toward it. That's Vespa, the boss he cooked out of a hive in a corruption lake, and it's done incubating. Seo Yul has spent this whole stretch quietly stalking a trap for the world to walk into. A few days left before he heads back down to spring it. Here's a hero problem you don't see coming. The woman Seo Yul just pulled out of a collapsing dungeon isn't screaming for an ambulance, she's asking for his number. He's a rescue department chief, secret holder of the hidden Labyrinth Architect class. The guy who builds and bends entire labyrinths to his will, and right now he is standing in Pink Dungeon, Fallout watching a survivor go starry-eyed instead of terrified, thinking in this situation, is she seriously? Because something is very wrong, and for once it isn't the monster. Turns out his own power betrayed him. One of his constructs came with a side effect nobody printed in the manual. It lures in the opposite sex, working on people the way a queen bee's pheromones work on her hive. He clocks that his own heart is racing harder than just tired can explain, files the whole thing under pain in the neck, and decides he's going to have to be a lot more careful about who's standing downwind. It would honestly be funny, except there's still a large, shadowy something looming a few feet away, as the haze finally lifts. The woman blinks back to her senses with a jolt, and Seo Yul just plays it off, tells her she was spaced out for a second. He'd rather she think she zoned out than understand she was being broadcasted like a worker bee. So he does the one thing his life almost never allows. When she blurts out that she thinks she's fallen for him, he answers like a man who knows it's the pheromones talking and tells her she really needs to see a doctor later. Then he lets himself enjoy the day just for today, because it's been a long time since one felt this normal, grilling meat, losing a low-stakes argument with his Nuna over who's cooking, deciding he'll just do it himself. And the reason he's holding on to it is the quiet promise underneath once he goes down there. There won't be a calm day for a while. He's not wrong. Here's what the rest of the world doesn't know about him on paper. Seo Yul is sitting right at the S rank cutoff, practically an S rank, and he is working hard to keep that buried. A subordinate is itching to leak exactly that to the media, because imagine what an S rank would do for the Bureau's reputation. He shuts it down cold, tells them to keep it between them for now, says when the time is right it'll come out on its own, and that's not modesty. A man with a hidden class survives by not being interesting on paper, and keeping the target on his back small is, given what's coming, the smartest thing he does all day. Then the job pulls him under, exactly like he warned. He's on a ferry out to sea, still shaking off the fact that someone tailed him all the way to the docks, when a fellow passenger makes small talk, and the answer that comes back is a quiet gut punch. They only take this boat for the anniversary of their parents' death to visit the graves. Seo Yul lets the moment sit, then circles back to the thing nagging at him. Getting chased to the docks at all is strange. The destination is Ulleungdo, and the more he hears, the worse it sounds. The island's safety rating has been pinned dead last for ages. Gates keep tearing open despite how small the place is. There are nowhere near enough awakened to hold the line, and the government has reportedly cut its subsidies on top of it. By every number that matters, everyone there should have left years ago. They haven't, for the only reason that beats a spreadsheet. It's their home. And then he looks up, and there it is. A giant, slumbering thing the size of a building, and a blue system window that calmly files it as his new quest. It's an extermination quest: defeat the Kraken before it wakes from hibernation. The catch is the counter. He gets an engagement limit of 3, total, and the number ticks down with every single clash, win or run. The failure penalty is harsher than he expected, and it's the kind of bet he hates being handed fail, and he eats a 15% cut to his health points and mana points recovery, plus a 60-day suspension of his Labyrinth designer license, which, for the Labyrinth Architect, is the system threatening to confiscate the one thing that makes him dangerous. Win, and the payout is a fistful of random skill and equipment roulette tickets, the world's most expensive scratch-offs. So the rule turns this from a fight into a puzzle. He has to be right, 3 times at most, against something the size of a building that hasn't even opened its eyes yet. The way he reads the fine print, it's simple. He's not leaving this island until the thing is dead, and the problem is solved. Meanwhile, the surface of all this stays calm and gray. Cut to the bureau, where a branch performance review wraps up in a room full of suits, numbers basically no different from last month, and the branch manager's whole philosophy in one line: let's keep it that way. Now get back to work. Which, in a story like this, is exactly when you should start counting the knives. And right on cue. The knives, a backroom clique that trades favors and scratches each other's backs, has decided Seo Yul is a problem worth solving. Half of them are asking who the hell he even is. The rest already know him as the punk who messed with Overcross. What they're actually after is his rescue chief position, and the pitch is blunt and ugly. Make him disappear from here, and there's a reward in it. Call it a favor for somebody's brother. He survived the pheromones. He stared down a hibernating kraken, and the deadliest thing aimed at him turns out to be a handshake in a quiet room. The grill, the ferry, the borrowed normal day all feel a long way off now, because the real question just landed: who reaches him first, the monster that's still asleep, or the men in suits who are already wide awake? A whole branch of professional rescuers just dared the new guy to fight for the right to boss them, and the new guy is taking the dare literally. One of their seniors squares up, sneers something about ignoring titles and settling rank with fists, and Seo Yul kicks him clean off the ground mid-sentence before he can finish the insult. These are people who spent the last 5 minutes laughing at him as the loser who got shipped here for talking too much. Now their loudest one is airborne, so let's rewind to how thoroughly they earned this. Seo Yul has just been transferred to the Ulyungdo branch, and transferred is the polite word. He got exiled here for running his mouth one time too many. The reason the place is a disaster is sitting in the manager's chair. The branch head pockets the mana stones. Every squad risks their lives to haul back, and still somehow keeps the island functioning, which is its own dark little talent. Headquarters knows he's corrupt to the bone. We're aware of his corruption, they admit, and completely powerless to touch him. So they do the next best thing: they hand the mess to Seo Yul, lean on their own influence from above, and tell him to his face that the whole situation shifts based on what this one transfer decides to do. A lot of weight to dump on the man everyone else just threw away. He walks in, and the branch healer is the only one who treats him like a person. You must be manager Seo Yul, correct? 7 members are out on patrol, and the rest are standing by inside, which is a generous word for a crew. 3 drinks deep and playing cards. His first question on day 1 isn't about the corruption or the danger. It's a flat, whereas everyone else, because the room is already emptier than a rescue department has any right to be. The welcome curdles fast. Somebody hollers asking who the new fellow even is. The room decides the best thing about him is that he's the exile who talked too much, and they wave a celebratory drink at him like the posting's a joke he showed up late for. Seo Yul doesn't take the cup. He just tells them evenly that he's the one who'll be commanding them moving forward. That's when the biggest of them stops smiling. They have their own methods on this island, he explains, so the new manager can stay spotless and quiet, or he can have a problem. When Seo Yul doesn't blink, it turns into, "Where did you get such nerve, you lunatic? Rumor says you're just a tank, so do you actually want to drop the ranks and brawl it out?" And then he makes the mistake this whole genre is built on. He stakes it on a promise. "Should I be defeated, I'll leave the department without another word." Which brings us back to where we started, with him leaving the ground instead. He throws the first punch with a U-piece of already in his mouth, and he doesn't get to finish that one either. Seo Yul catches the swing on a raised forearm, answers with exactly one of his own, and the loudest man in the building goes flying mid, insult and lands studying the ceiling. No weapons, no drama, one hit from the guy they wrote off as a meathead. Seo Yul looks down at the suddenly speechless troublemaker and notes, almost pleasantly, that the most obnoxious idiot in the room has finally stopped talking. Then he turns to the rest with the invitation nobody wants. "Is there anyone else? Anybody want to try their luck against me?" Nobody breathes. He tells the room to be quiet, and for the first time it obeys. Excellent. His first order as the man in charge is to call the healer over to patch up the idiot he just put on the floor, which tells you the violence was never the point. Then he lays down the one rule that matters. If you wear the badge of the rescue department, then, on the clock, your only job is pulling people out alive, and what they do off the clock is none of his business. Do I make myself clear? Answer me? He gets a room full of nods. And then, having broken them with a fist, he fixes them with a number. Everyone's getting a 15% raise. and he can square it with the superiors. You can watch disbelief and greed wrestle it out. He's got to be bluffing, one mutters, while another is already doing the math, 15%. Can that actually happen? A minute ago they wanted to fight him. Now it's a stammered, yeah, understood. The fastest way to discipline a corrupt office, it turns out, is to pay the corruption. That's about when the man who actually outranks all of them strolls in, enjoying this far too much. The zone is classified as extremely dangerous, he warns, so prepare yourselves. The next little while is going to be quite entertaining, though you all really do need to mend your ways first. Then, without a flicker of nerves, my name is Cha Sek, and I am the branch manager. And before anyone can be intimidated, he grins and admits he's looking forward to that raise himself. In private, the showman act drops. He'll provide as much support as he possibly can, and the Bureau will authorize whatever Seo Yul needs, because the rescue department is a sector Cha Sek manages personally, he mentions, almost in passing, that one recruit, a Cha Do Yan, caught his eye, the kind of throwaway line a story only plants on purpose. Then he leaves Seo Yul with a warning instead of a thank. You take into account what's approaching. Then the paperwork lands the real blow. An official notice declares Uleongdo a special zone, which quietly grants it autonomous authority overnight, and the corrupt branch head, the one who spent his days on card games while his people did the dying, gets exactly one stunned "excuse me" before the floor drops out from under him. From now on, the rescue department answers to an entirely new chain of command, and the man who ran this island into the ground is told to leave immediately. One transfer order, one fistfight, one number. That's all it took for the guy nobody wanted to walk into the worst posting in the country and quietly make the whole rescue department his, and there's still something approaching that even his new backer won't name.